afternoon, distinguished colleagues. Can we pray? Almighty God, the creator and ruler of heaven and earth, we beseech thee to inspire and guide all our actions so that we may always walk in the path of justice, love, and charity to one another. Help us with thy grace to do all of those things that will promote the unity, peace, happiness, and prosperity of Nigeria in general and Lagos State in particular. Amen. Thank you. Good morning. You are welcome to the plenary today, Monday, October 4th, 2021. Folds and approval of folds and proceedings. Page 392. I've gone through the folds and proceedings of Monday, September 27, 2021, and approval is hereby given. Message from the Governor, Mr. Clark. The Right Honorable Speaker, sir. Distinguished honorable members, there is no message from the Governor. Other announcements. Right Honorable Speaker, sir, there is no announcement. Matter of urgent public importance. None has been brought to my notice. Personal explanations. Reports. None. Business of the day. The majority leader.
Mr. Speaker, colleagues, good afternoon. The first item on the other paper for today is House of Assembly motion number 32. For need to protect shoreline communities of Eti-Osa from imminent catastrophe caused by ocean surge. The prime mover of the motion is Honorable Adams Naim, the Deputy Majority Leader, and the motion is supported by myself, Honorable Mrs. Miranda M.L., Honorable Mrs. Sokodara M.R., Honorable Engineer Yusha G.O.R., Honorable Yusuf A.A., Honorable Ayode L.O., Honorable Dimogun J.E., Honorable Elliot D.O., Honorable Raouf A.O., Honorable Tijani S.O., Honorable Olumo S.L., Honorable Akisanya A.M., Honorable Joseph K.O., Honorable Mrs. Ali Macaulay K.M., Honorable Ogunkelu S.O.O., Honorable Afini O.S., Honorable Saeed W.O. With your kind permission, Mr. Speaker, I invite the Prime Mover to move his motion. Thank you.
Thank you, the Majority Leader. Honorable Naim Adams, the Deputy Majority Leader, can we have you? Are you ready? Okay.
Right Honorable Speaker, distinguished colleagues, need to protect shoreline communities of Eti-Osa from imminent catastrophe caused by ocean surge. This House notes that the shoreline communities of Eti-Osa, namely Okun-Afa, Okumopo, Lafiaji, Owodikuku, Okun-Aja, and environs are prone to imminent catastrophe due to ocean surge. This House further notes that the issue of ocean surge in Eti-Osa has been a perennial occurrence as occasioned by a combination of heavy rainfall which leads to rise in sea level, inadequate drainage channels, and poor solid waste disposal by members of the public. This House observes that the aforementioned communities are on the verge of extinction as the ocean surge has already claimed a sizable landmass of the shoreline communities. This House is worried that a lot of families have been displaced with unquantifiable loss of homes and property. This House is further worried that unless these environmental threats to the shoreline communities of Eti-Osa is quickly addressed, these communities may be literally lost to the sea. This House is concerned that given the economic and commercial potentials of Eti-Osa in Lagos State, any adverse situation to the communities, whether in part or whole, may lead to huge loss of resources and revenue for Lagos State. This House resolves to 1. To call on His Excellency Mr. Babajide Olusola Sanwo-Olu, the Governor of Lagos State, to direct the necessary commissioners to visit the affected communities in the bid to having first-hand assessment of the situation and finding a lasting solution to the environmental threat that is already becoming an emergency. 2. Direct the relevant ministries, departments and agencies to come up with modalities to immediate remedies of the affected communities and prevention of imminent catastrophe. I so move, sir.
Honorable Tobun Mustahin.
Thank you, Right Honorable Speaker. I rise to second the motion as moved.
Thank you. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those who are against say nay. The ayes have it. Honorable Naim Adams.
Majid.
Light. Thank you, Right Honorable Speaker, distinguished colleagues. Mr. Speaker, sir, this afternoon I would like to support my motion that the communities aforementioned, Alpha Beach, Owodikoko, Lafiaji, Okun-Aja, and Okumopo, these communities are in the verge of extinction as we speak right now. So many families have been displaced because of this ocean surge. Even the road that was constructed by Lagos State as far back as so many years, the water has swept away all this water. As we speak now, the NEPA poles that we have wire and lights there right now, as we speak to you right now, Mr. Speaker, the water is sweeping away almost everything. So our communities are calling on the Governor, the Speaker, House of Assembly, Cabinet member to come to our aid, save our soul in this so-called communities. And not only that again, we must, as a matter of urgency, direct necessary agencies to commence and emergency within that area, because so many families are being displaced without to pay compensation to them and all that. And I want to say again, in 1981, through the Federation Accounts Act of 1981, on the recommendation of Okigbo Commission, ecological fund was established, which 1% of this fund is being solely set aside for the states to take care of this ecological matter. Mr. Speaker, 3 months ago, just this July, the federal government reports that they've given out about 60.04 billion to states in Nigeria just for this ecological fund to take care of this kind of situation. And Lagos State was excluded out of this fund that we are talking about.
As I speak to you now, let me read out the states that have benefited from this ecological fund. Mr. Speaker, sorry. We have, sorry please. States that have benefited. We have Abia State, Imo State, Ogun State, Osun State, Adamawa State, Cross River State, Taraba State, Gombe State, Jigawa State, Katsina State, Niger State, and FCT. Mr. Speaker, sir, Lagos State is here to benefit from this ecological fund. I would like to call on the governor too as well to also apply for this ecological fund, and the federal government too, as a matter of urgency with this fund. Mr. Speaker, sir, to submit, I would like to amend my resolve to add that to call on the federal government to, as a matter of urgency, release the ecological funds for Lagos State so that this threat to life and property on the shoreline of Lagos State can be dealt with. 1. 2. To call on the federal government to, as a matter of urgency, initiate the requisite intervention to deal with the ecological challenges in Eti-Osa and all shoreline in communities in Lagos State. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you. Honorable Rotimi.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. My colleague, good afternoon. Mr. Speaker, you appreciate the fact that if care is not taken, the community will be wiped off. It just is a matter of time. We all appreciate the fact that Lagos State is below sea level, and hence that our communities he mentioned are prone to extinction. But Mr. Speaker, I want us to look at it from point of being organized. You cannot blame federal government if you have not asked for or you have not applied for such fund. Thank God that Mr. President visited the place. We appreciate the level of destruction on ground and the need for us to prioritize. But then we need to call our government to liaise with the president, to discuss with him and bring this to the fore. Ecological fund is under the vice presidency, so the fund is there. We can make application to the vice president of Nigeria. Fortunately enough, is from Lagos as well, and I see no reason why he will not accede to our request, because part of his state is being wiped off. But the first thing we need to do is first apply, then we take it up, even with our individual House of Reps members who can help us to escalate as well. But the fact of the matter is that it is high time we do something about it. State government cannot muzzle the requirements, financial requirements for the shoreline protection, because it runs into hundreds of billions if you have to accomplish that in good step. But my take is that either through collaboration with federal government or we apply to federal government. But the first thing we need to do is first put in place palliative before we now see whether we're going to collaborate with federal government or we get the office of the vice president to help us look into this issue with a view to responding immediately. So on that, I want to support him and commiserate with him. It's quite unfortunate that part of our communities are gone, but by the grace of God, I think federal government will quickly do something about it, more so when the president of Nigeria actually visited the site. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Honorable Majid Fatai.
Yeah. Good afternoon, sir. I would like to appreciate the prime movers of this motion. Secondly, I want to suggest if we can change the heading, because the problem is not limited to Eti-Osa alone. It's affected some areas in the Bejuleki local government and part of the Badagry as well. If you can read us that all the affected areas in the state instead of limiting it to the Eti-Osa. Sir, one of the major causes of this problem has to do with the way and manners in which our people go about manure dredging in our area. Some youth have decided to be taking sand from the bed of the sea and sell it instead of them to dredge from the lagoon. It's one of the major causes. Until when we set up a task force to monitor these activities, I believe that it's going to reduce. on this note, I want to submit that we need to call on the Ministry of Waterfront to set up a task force to ensure the preventions of these activities within this area. And I will also call on the state government to build a wall as we have it in Eko on the affected community. And the issue of ecological fund is not limited to only state alone. The local government also have the right to ask for this ecological fund. I know some members of the local government that have made the request to the office of the vice president, and they are working on it. Eti-Osa local government can also do the same thing. I've instructed the chairman of my local government to apply for this ecological fund so that they can use it for these problems that we're having. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Honorable Sonny Ghania Okolawa.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Distinguished colleagues. The realities of climate change and global warming is here. And coming in its wake is the attendant environmental disaster. We all know, like Honorable Moji just said, we know the problems. Where are our problems? You see people dredging, activities going around all over that area, Eti-Osa, legal and illegal. And we keep mute, and we're crying woe now. I think we must abate all of these toward the tendencies by stopping illegal dredging all around those places. Reclamation works are going on, and we are not doing anything to protect, communities that are around the coastal belt. We must be serious with governance. In some similar crimes, like Netherlands, we have to adopt the model of Netherlands. What they do essentially is to provide protective embankments all over the coastal belt. They call it dikes, protective dikes. Even here in Lagos, sometime past, we introduced grannies. You go to Babish, you see it there. Why not for areas in Eti-Osa to protect this community from being submerged? It is very important, Mr. Speaker. We have a responsibility as a government to not to allow all of these communities on the coastal line, to get into extinction. Mr. Speaker, to mitigate all of this, I've just talked about protective dikes, embankment, grannies. And applying for the ecological fund, I think makes some sense. We must apply for it so that we can also benefit. Having said all of this, it's not a matter of, I want the prayer to be adjusted, so that, it's not a matter of Mr. Governor going to conduct visitation. No. We all know our problem, know our challenges, but to act to save the lives of our people and communities that are on the coastal line. I thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Olumo, Honorable Olumo Said.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Well, this is a serious matter. It takes a visitation to that particular area. In fact, our coastal areas in Lagos, both in Badagry, Eti-Osa, Epe, and Ibejuleki, even on the island, Lagos Island, to know and appreciate the menace that is that is happening to us in the state. Now we should take the cognizance of climate change, like Honorable Akolawo said, but there is a fact that we must also look at seriously, and that is the development going along that shore. Seaports are being developed. We have estates coming up massively along that area, and all this involves dredging, and the seabed is affected. Now, what do? We need to look at our behavioral tendencies to ensure that we behave rightly so that we can manage God-given resources. By the time we get ourselves involved in illegal activity, even those who are not illegal, what are the corporate social responsibility by companies that are digging deep into our ocean to create seaports, to even create refinery along that axis? Because all of them are involved in big time dredging, and the consequential effect is affecting those communities that does not have proper embankment. We need, even the committee on environment of the house need to visit that place to be able to appreciate what is happening along that side. We have talked about ecological fund. If we don't ask, they won't give us. I know there are a lot of national politics that goes on the ecological fund. Our representative at the federal level needs to wake up to their responsibility to ensure that we lobby those people that are responsible for disbursing the ecological fund. It's not only for the ocean line alone. Come inland, you will see a lot of things that we need to do to ensure that we save Lagos State, because like Honorable Lewu rightly said, we are at a very low level with the sea. So if we don't take drastic action now, I wonder when we will do this. So I largely want to support this motion. It is timely, and I think that's the direction we should go. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, the majority leader.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I also want to commend the prime mover, because we talk about ecological funds. You will be amazed at times when you watch the news and you see sheds being washed away in some states, and they say total number of houses destroyed and very many people rendered homeless. I'm talking about sheds. What we qualify as sheds in the states. So that means that they shout out. We also need to shout out, not to always rest on ours as being capable of solving our ecological problems. If you don't shout, you may not be listened to. After all, in the scripture, it is said, knock and the door shall be opened. Ask and you shall be given. Is in the scripture. So I think what Honorable Naim has been able to do now is to shout out. And like Honorable Okolawo said, we may have to amend the title to read, need to protect shoreline communities of Eti-Osa and others from imminent catastrophe caused by ocean surge. So this would admit all areas like Badagry and Lagos Island, as Honorable Lumo said. Mr. Speaker, I think the committee on waterfront needs a lot of work to do, has a lot of assignments on its shoulders. It should not be out of place for the House of Assembly, being the representative of the people, to call for evaluation of dredging activities in the state and what threat it portends for shoreline communities, and what are the ways, futuristic solution to this. We are talking about this in 10 years. Do we know what will happen? Because constructions and other development are going on in the state. So I will say that the committee on waterfront should sit back and think of how to be involved in this, championing the cause for the House of Assembly. Mr. Speaker, the mover talked about identifying the problems, but in the resolve, it leaves out one vital aspect. It talks about poor disposal of solid waste. Poor disposal of solid waste, Mr. Speaker, there should be a resolve to the whole state, to members of the public, to be cautious of the effect of improper disposal of solid waste, and as such should adhere strictly to the way the Lagos State has provided to dispose our solid waste. We have LOMA doing the work it's supposed to do. We should also assist them to get this done. So, Mr. Speaker, I think one of the legs for the resolve is to be an appeal to members of the public to always dispose their solid waste in the manner prescribed by law in the state. Aside from that, Mr. Speaker, I think the motion is a very straightforward one. We are only trying to do some embellishment for proper position for it. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you. Honorable Desmond Elliott.
Thank you, my right honorable speaker. Good afternoon, colleagues. Right honorable speaker, I like to commend the prime mover of this motion. I think it's not just apt, but indeed it has come to our knowledge that if we do not tackle the issue of ocean surge as far as Lagos State is concerned, we are going to be in serious trouble. My colleagues have actually said enough and a lot concerning it, so I will just add a bit to pretty much what my honorable colleagues have said. I would like to bring to our attention a report by the National Conservation Foundation, and it states that if steps were not taken to improve the surge situation and condition of Lagos State, the state, Mr. Speaker, not just the shorelines or communities around the shorelines, the state is in danger of being submerged by 2050. So this is just a few years from now, and we might decide to take it seriously or not. I think it's a situation where it starts with us, the committee on infrastructure. I want to believe that's the appropriate, not infrastructure, waterfront infrastructure. That committee, sir, would have a lot to do, especially in going through. Honorable Akande talked about the dikes and the those sea breakers. Already, I want to bring to attention that these funds were actually being given or was being allocated to make sure that at intervals of 40 meters between Goshen Estate and Alpha Beach, that these dikes were supposed to have been given such as a palliative form whilst we wait for something more tenable and something more permanent. You know, I think the committee should be able to go and see how far we can extend, seeing that our shorelines are being threatened. So I believe the committee, it should come also as a prayer that the committee should also take into action and look at this seriously. Another very important thing as well, Mr. Speaker, is the issue of these new estates and new towns that are being created. As we see, a lot of them are being done close to these shorelines. We should watch out for the drainages, and the appropriate committee as well should look into those drainages and you know, the way at which water goes in and comes out. That being said, sir, I also wish and pray that in our prayers we also call on the representatives at the federal level to assist us in accessing these funds. Some of these funds, I might add, you know, have also been assessed by some communities. I would also speak for Shorelline. We've also been able to assess a little bit of that fund, you know, and that's how they've been able to help out in our System 5 that leads all the way from Eti-Osa down to Igomu. You know, I think if we try and push it and speak to our representatives, they will be able to assess this as well. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I want to support the motion by the prime mover. I just want to add a few more information because I'm also a member of that moved the motion, so ordinarily I shouldn't be commenting. One of the major reasons, in addition to most of the things my colleagues have said, that leads to erosion of shoreline is the incursion into the shoreline. Sand is replenished, I think is west-east, continuously on shorelines.
The moment you incur into the shoreline, you deprive the supply of sand to the places to the left of that incursion. What is happening at all those beaches, if you look down the road or down the beach now, we will find one incursion or the other that has disrupted the natural flow of sand. I remember quite a few decades back, we lost the Bar Beach. We lost Bar Beach because of the groins that were created, the moles, they call them the moles that were created for the seaport. That was what eroded the Bar Beach. Eco-Atlantic is back there now. Eco-Atlantic is not causing problem for anybody because what we took back from the sea was what the sea took from us. So the shoreline was replenished. But if you look along that line, we're definitely going to find some incursion into the water that has disrupted the replenishment of sand along that shoreline. That is why the state has been building several groins along the beach to trap the sand. That is one of the methods of using to replenish sand to the beach if we're having this kind of problem. So I want to support some of my colleagues here that have already said that. The Committee on Waterfront should do a comprehensive survey. You don't need to use consultants, you can use consultants to study what is actually taking place there. The groin can be a solution, an immediate solution. It's probably permanent because the moment it's there, it will trap the sand and replenish the sand and save this estate. So if you can build groins along that line. But beyond that, there must be a policy on how we incur into our beach line, because each time we go into the water, we create erosion on one side or the other. That's why I wanted to add to what my honorable colleague has said earlier on. Thank you.
Thank you. Honorable Rashid Makinde.
Thank you, the right honorable speaker. I think the motion raised today is not a new one to us in this house. It has been raised several times. I think what is really lacking is the executive action on those motions we often raise there. Ocean surge is a result of high tides where the volume of water rise and it finds its ways into the inland. And then this ocean surge is more often caused by unguided land reclamation simply for economic gains. All over the world, there's nowhere we will not find land reclamation, but are we really putting our activities on scientific measure before we engage on this? So this one is begging for answer up to today. And we realize that a lot of economic activities around the seaport often allows the seawater to rise, especially when the barging is taking place. And more importantly, we discover that the dredging, most areas where we are doing the dredging is not being seriously monitored. Some have really, you need to really balance these activities so that some area will not be suffered for the economic gain of one other. So the ministry in charge need to really sit up to ensure that all activities within our shoreline is being monitored. Not only the shore, not only the sea, even our creeks is almost choked up. If the Committee on Lands and Waterfront can go out and take the inventory of the allocation given to individual landowners that embark or are beating our creeks and lagoons, we discover that they've really encroached onto this, and then it's even choking up the lagoons. As a result of this, the water table will rise, and all these ones are really causing the ocean surge we are really clamoring for. Out of this,
we have some relief funds at the federal level, we will call ecological fund. Lagos State have been so docile to assess all sorts of this, we can call it a national benefit, which Lagos State should be among the first states to benefit from. We don't need to even lobby for it. We have committee at national level. They know the peculiarity of each state, that they need to really be disposing this money to us. By and large, our representative at the national end and the governor of the Lagos State can still push forward to ensure that we assess this fund, so that at the end of the day, those areas that's been affected can be taken care of. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Honorable Iwola.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for the recognition. I thank the prime mover of this motion too, and as well as other colleagues that have contributed to this important motion. You agree with me that the natural problem that we are facing in Lagos State is not peculiar to Lagos State alone. It's something that we know, especially when it comes to coastal areas. It's evident that we just need to take the bull by the horn, and that's the reason why I will support my colleagues that talk about the issue of grants that was put in place during Ashwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu era. At that beach, we were able to push back the water there. So this should be replicated in other coastal parts of our states. We are talking of Epe, Badagry, Eti-Osa, as well as other ones there. We should do that. And we should know that beside the resolution that we have, beside the prayer that you have here, Mr. Speaker, we need to add that the Ministry of Information and Strategy should be up and doing. They need to sensitize our people on the need why they should not dump waste on the ocean. Secondly, they need to sensitize them on the problem that we have when they dump all this rubbish as well as other things on the ocean. Another one that we should put there has to do with the tapping into this ecological fund from federal governments. If you don't ask for this, we will not be giving. So we need to ask for it. Others say that are benefiting is because they ask for it, that's why they are giving. Lastly, Mr. Speaker, the emergency relief agency that we have in the federal as well as in the states, we need to involve them in the relief package. It's not enough that we say the governor should go or should visit the sites, but we need quick action. We need action. All our words should be backed with action. Lastly, sir, we need to ask ourselves, the resolution that we passed on the floor of the House by the Assembly, what happened to the resolutions? It's very sad and appalling that probably we are not monitoring all this. We need to ask, because it's good that we have all this one beautiful ideas that we are placing before the executive, but have they been effective? Please, we need to look into that. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Honorable Tobun. Mr. Ain.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Well, I want to support this motion as properly moved by Deputy Majority Leader, based on some premise. My colleague have spoke gloriously about the effects of the climate change. Now, Mr. Speaker, let's draw our attention back to some administrations before now. Humongous amounts were allocated
for shoreline protection across the state. So much money. So much money. Mr. Speaker, we need to investigate. What happened to that money? Where did it go? The chairman of economic planning is here. He will collaborate. The committee on water funds should be empowered to investigate funds previously allocated for shoreline protection across the state. Let us know that. Fine, we can assess the ecological fund. It will be an added advantage without sounding immodest. Secondly, Mr. Speaker, there are a lot of, I'm saying this because that side of Lagos State, that is where most of our funds, the revenue to the government covers comes from. And we cannot sit here and allow those areas to be washed off by ocean surge. The reclamation activities going around in that place is second to none. Without adequate provisions, water will always find its level. If you want to dredge, what is the function of your dredge machine? What is the size? What is the depth where you are dredging from? So those things are so rampant in that area, and go to most natural waterways as been reclaimed in that axis. So all these things we need to investigate. Fine, we are calling the Lagos State government to do this, to do that, but this house to have a responsibility to nationally investigate what is going on, so that we can help the state, help ourselves, and help the executive, so that we can have a permanent solution to this problem. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Honorable Akande. After that, Honorable Mohammed, Honorable Laude, and Honorable Laude. That will be all. Honorable Akande.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I want to thank the prime mover of this motion. May I remind us that sometime last year, another committee was formed by Mr. Speaker to look into this illegal dredging in Lagos State. And I happen to be the chairman of that committee. The report captured everything we're talking about in that report, but the report is still pending. And again, I want to take my submission from the statement of Honorable Akande that says we must be serious with governance. A lot of things were discovered during our sojourn for that assignment, and we discovered a lot of things, and we gave interim reports of what we discovered. It is so disheartening that some of these were captured by TVC, by ATA, by some media stations, but nothing was done in that regard. But to be honest, I just want to state that for us to prevent this, we need to construct levees. Levee is an embankment that is built to protect overflow of water at every shorelines. But my own problem is not about ecological fund or whatsoever. The lacuna in this is what we discovered during our sojourn or the committee assignment, and it became an issue, and that issue is the issue between the NIWA and the Lagos State. NIWA will grant permission for illegal dredgings and dredgings whatsoever. At the end of the day, to the expense or to the detriment of the state will now be cleaning up what NIWA permitted people to do. The question is, what is NIWA doing? What is
their aim. What are they protecting if the shorelines went into comatose? If they are destroyed, what are they doing? We ought to know. They can't grant a permission for some people to destroy the shoreline that will lead to this problem, and now allows the state to bear the brunt. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Honorable Mohammed, for that, Jimmy.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Also, I would like to commend the prime mover of this particular motion on ground. And I think it's best we address the issues as we should, rather than beating around the bush. Firstly, I think we need to put our house in order, starting from the executive. Back in the past, we had a proper licensing system where before you get a license to dredge, you had to demonstrate capacity of the company who will be licensed. You had to do proper environmental impact assessment of the place to be dredged. You had to do a proper survey of the area. You had to do proper sand search of the places. But none of that is existent, because even within the ministries, there's a lot of clamor as to who owns waterfront dredging, who owns this and who owns that. And as thus, nothing is being done in terms of enforcement and in terms of monitoring. Honorable Akande spoke about the issues between NIWA and, before it was NIWA, LASHA, and waterfront. Now it's waterfront and NIWA. LASHA has backed out to say this is our role or this is not our role. It's very saddening that the reason why we brought up that conflict before was because of the issue of multiple taxation. But now we're going to the degradation of our own environments. And that's, I think that is the key of the prime mover. The environment is being degraded to a point where there might not be, it's not a joke. Those communities might not exist anymore, sir. It's no news that Lagos is on the sea, is below sea level. But with those kind of dredging activities going on there, sir, until we get our places together, our acts together, this will not be solved. Secondly, it's very unfortunate that it's only in this climate that would allow certain types of dredging. I was hoping I could demonstrate this, but I'll just give a small analysis of my understanding of this. It's either you're doing a capital dredging or you're doing a maintenance dredging. Now, what a capital dredging would include is usually stockpiling, where you stockpile sand for sale, for construction, or for whatnot. Maintenance dredging would usually be channelization for you to be able to allow for big vessels to come in. Right now, you go to the waterways on the island now, you see an array of dredgers. On one spot, the so-called Chinese type of dredging has flooded the place, sir. Now, ideally, when you have a mechanical dredging, sand replenishes, sir, and when you dredge, you have to dredge from left to right to allow for collapse. But with the Chinese style of dredging, sir, it's like a borehole style. You're digging straight down deep. So there's nothing replenishing, and the surface is not being equal at all. These are the real challenges we are having here now. Now, they're coming into this place, things that are not acceptable in other climes. How do we expect that the places will not go under sea level? It's not possible, sir. We need to go back home, issue the proper licenses. Enforcement is key. Sir, back then, I remember as well too, we used to have the Federal Ministry of Mines, Steels and Mines, that had what you call the cadastral areas. A cadastra is almost like a parcel of an area that belongs to you. What that did before, sir, is that if Mr. A was dredging within a certain cadastra, you could tell that this was the person who was responsible for degrading that particular area. we need to look for a fusion of how to work with the Federal Ministry of Mines as well, to say, we issue this cadastre, work in tangent with the people of the state governments, and then let's be able to see who's responsible. Now you go on the waterways, sir, you can barely identify any owner, because before then, back in Fashola's era, sir, you had every judge that had a sign. They had a name. You go there, you're inspecting, you could see who owned the judge with good responsibility. We need to take the report of the committees more serious, because it's very unfortunate that after they did so much extensive work going into the waters, they went the length and breadth of Lagos State, all the way from Ekpe to Badagry, to go and do this investigation. And still, the report of the House has still not been considered to do that. In all we're saying, so I just don't bore ever. I think we need to start with the House, call the Ministry of Waterfront Infrastructure and Development. Let us know what their challenges are. If their challenges are about enforcement, which it seems to be that, let us get to it. We have a court case which I believe has been in favor of the state government. How do we continue to execute this? Sir, this is Lagos State. If we want to do it, if we want to be serious about it, about this dredging thing, no one can stop us from doing this, sir. Nobody can stop us, because these communities we're talking about, until one day, we're talking about Eco Atlantic, how it is. Please, don't let's sugarcoat it. Eco Atlantic has been sorted out. What about Goshen Estates? You've blocked it with the dikes. You've put retaining walls there. The water is coming. It's an ocean. It's going to stop from there and move to the next place. So let's go to the likes of the Goshen and go to the left. Eco Atlantic is sorted out at the moment, but let's look at the surrounding communities. And it's not until we wait for all these communities to submerge to do this before we start to complain. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Honorable Folajimi. Lastly, Honorable Layode. Are you still on?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Actually, I only have even comment because I am also a member of this prime mover of this motion. But I want to give you information with the series of analysis given to us by some engineers within the house. Mr. Speaker, sir, I've been in this house for a while. When I came in 2007, 9, 10, thereabout, this was the first of motions that we have moved in this house, where I have the chairman of the committee, waterfront here today. Even that 2007, I think Honorable Lowe was the chairman of waterfront then. We be Honorable Abiro thereabout. So, but what I'm trying to say here today, we have moved this kind of emotion that even giving the government of Governor Babatunde Fashola the opportunity, giving them a certain huge money of billions of naira, and today we are still mentioning the same problem here. And the engineer, like engineer Folajimi, engineer Ishawu, Mr. Speaker, honestly, they have even led me in a certain level concerning the issue of dredging. I could recollect there was a time when we are debating this issue. Honorable Ishawu mentioned that dredging is the best, and he still stands by it. That even giving them the opportunity, dragging out, even giving us the opportunity that the water will be, you mentioned that, so that there won't be any problem. Today, Honorable Folajimi telling me, you also going to that direction, coming back again. What is the causes? When I think into what is happening there, they don't want to come out and give us the genuine information. Sir, Mr. Speaker, they are the cause of this. I'm sorry, I'm not saying Honorable Folajimi or Judicial, but the people that are saying they are dredging, some of them are not dredging. They are mining the sand. The miners, they even mentioned the other time, the miners is different from the dredgers. And I said, who are the miners? They said those are the people packing sand in the front of the ocean, the high sea. What is happening now? What are they telling us? So, Mr. Speaker, I really said, because I am a member of this committee, what we need to do, let us send the committee and other relevant committees that they can join together and go and look the problem of that area, because the causes also from our people staying in that area. They mentioned of Badagry. Mr. Speaker, Badagry, we are lucky in Badagry. If you come to Badagry from border area Seme down to Ojo in Ajidi area, our own shoreline, very okay and very well. Even if you are staying in our own shoreline, before going to the IC, it's about 100 or 100 meters away before you can even see anybody. But coming to Aja, they are even treading the ocean line. You will see most of them building in front about 10 meters or 15 meters away to the IC. So these are the causes of what is going to be happening. Thank God, Honorable Togo also mentioned about the money that they have earmarked to the ministry. Yes, I was the chairman of the committee on waterfront also about the last budget. Billions of naira were being given to that ministry that they should use to protect the shoreline. So Honorable Thomas said it all. Try, Mr. Speaker, give us the power. Let them go out to ask. Call the engineers here. So let us listen to their analysis. Honorable Jimmy, Honorable Ishao, try and put them in the committee. If Honorable Ishao is going to answer two things.
Honorable
Sir.
Is on Honorable Ishao and Honorable Jimmy.
For the engineer. Yes, that's Honorable Falaji. If you see the way you are giving us the analysis, you can see that one of the engineers. I didn't say maybe is working together with them. I don't know. Maybe you have a machine. I don't know. But Honorable Ishao is also a member of the engineer also. I don't know. Maybe you maybe having I don't know about the dredger. But the one giving the ministry the money, even the last budget gave us the billions of naira to our own ministry. What is happening? So that's why I said we should put two of them. So we're able to identify their own machine when we are going on that shoreline. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
All right. I want to thank distinguished colleagues for their contributions. Honorable Ayode, do not bother either they are dredgers or engineers. As far as we are concerned here, they are honorable members of this great house, and they have contributed based on their knowledge of what is happening. Let me say there have been a plethora of suggestions by distinguished members on this motion, ranging from the need for attitudinal change, proper disposal of solid waste, that committee on waterfront infrastructure should also be empowered to go around, do visitation audit and make relevant suggestions. The need for the state to seek ecological fund from the federal government, and to also tell the Ministry of the Waterfront to see to how the shoreline will be protected. Those are some of the suggestions. Let me also say that, like some distinguished colleagues did mention, it's also affecting other areas aside from Eti-Osa. The other areas are Ibejuleki. Until now, before Honorable Ayode spoke, we were told that Badagry Axis is also affected, and I'm sure of Lagos Island, because there are now areas that are now perpetually flooded, which hitherto are not prone to flooding, but now they are perpetually flooded from January till December. So sad. And I'll call on the prime mover if he's willing to bring in some of these suggestions to be included in his results. The prime mover, Honorable Noim Adams.
Right, Honorable Speaker, distinguished colleagues, amendment. 1, we need to change the heading of that of this motion to need to protect shoreline communities in Eti-Osa, Ibejuleki, Badagry, and other affected communities in the state. Okay, again, need to protect shoreline communities of Eti-Osa, Ibejuleki, Badagry, Lagos Island, and other affected communities in the state. Secondly, to call on Mr. Babajide Olusola Sanwo-Olu, the governor of Lagos State, to direct the commissioners for waterfront, infrastructure development and environment and water resources to come up with modalities for immediate remedies of affected communities and prevention of imminent catastrophe. 3. To call on the governor to work out modalities on how the state can access or benefit from the ecological fund being given to other states that are affected by ecological disaster by the federal government. To call on the committee in the Lagos State House of Assembly, Committee on Waterfront, to embark on site inspection of communities along shorelines and to visit the aforementioned communities, Lafiaji, Okuaja, Owolukoko, Moko, and Lafiaji, and Alpha Beach, in order to see on the spot assessment of the situation of things within that axis. Fourth is to call on the federal government to, as a matter of urgency, release the ecological funds for Lagos State so that this threat to lives and property on the shoreline of Lagos State can be dealt with. Lastly, to call on the federal government to, as a matter of urgency, initiate the requisite intervention to deal with the ecological challenges in Eti-Osa, Ibejuleki, Lagos Island, Badagry, and other shoreline communities in Lagos State. I so move.
Thank you. Observation, the majority leader.
Mr. Speaker, I want to observe some of the prayers in the resolve. We cannot call on federal government. We can only call on specific officer in the federal government. It's either we call on the president or we call on the ministry or agency that is particularly responsible for the ecological fund. When we call the federal government, it's like being too ambiguous. So we must direct prayer to specific officer of the needs that we want. That's my observation.
Observation, sir.
Honorable Olowo.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I think ecological fund is domiciled in the office of the Vice President. So it will be more appropriate if that request is directed to the office of Vice President so that they can action it. Thank you, sir.
Observation.
Honorable Sonny.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I just observed that Honorable Desmond Elliott just informed the House that Shorelline local government applied for the ecological fund and they got it. Why not Eti-Osa local government or another local government that are affected apply for it directly and get it and fix whatever the problem we are encountering?
I don't think, I think that it has been said that other states had applied and some had been given, so we do not see any reason why Lagos State cannot apply. If any local government is interested, they can so apply, because we are not here for, we are not legislating as it were for local government, though we talk on their behalf, we should, as a matter of fact, tell the state to apply. That is the best solution that we can do here. Honorable Naim, do you still have
To call on the Vice President of Nigeria, Professor Yemi Osinbajo, to, as a matter of urgency, release the ecological funds for Lagos State so that this threat to life and property on the shoreline of Lagos State can be dealt with.
Office of the Vice President.
Okay, Office of the Vice President, as amended by majority. To call on the President Muhammadu Buhari, to, as a matter of urgency, initiate the requisite intervention to deal with the ecological challenges in Eti-Osa, Ibeojuneki, Badagry, Lagos Island, and shorelines, and all shorelines and communities in Lagos State. Thank you, sir.
Honorable Noim, there is a suggestion that state must apply before you are given. You are not.
Yes,
Is it part of your?
yes, I'm ready, sir.
You said it's there. Okay. Honorable Tobun.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Well, I just want to rise again to second the motion as exactly moved. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you, Honorable Tobun. Those in favor say aye. Those who are against say nay. The ayes have it. Laying of report, I call on Honorable Akande to please lay report on the Lagos State DNA and Forensic Center bill.
Good afternoon, Mr. Speaker, distinguished colleagues. I'm here to lay a report on a bill for a law to provide for the establishment of Lagos State Deoxyribo-Nucleic acid DNA and Forensic Center to support criminal investigation, law enforcement, and preservation of evidence for the judicial system and for other connected purposes. A joint committee report of Committee on Judiciary, Human Rights Public Petition, LASIEC, and Health, ISOLE.
Thank you. May I call on Honorable Sheikh Shokunle? Shola Shokunle. You know, it was the way I saw you dress on Thursday, last Thursday. Please present your report. Before you do that, were you catwalking?
Being an officer.
Okay. It's okay.
Good afternoon, Mr. Speaker, fellow colleagues. I'm here this afternoon to lay a report on a bill for a law to regulate organ harvest and transplantation in Lagos State and for other connected purposes, ISOLE.
Thank you. May I call on Honorable Akande Victor again to lay the report, to lay his report.
Good afternoon, Mr. Speaker, once again. Distinguished colleagues, I'm here to lay a report on the Committee of Judiciary, Human Rights Public Petition and LASIEC on a petition on acquisition of 2,443.08 hectares of land at Shorelline, Moko, Abijo and Udibetu areas in the Betuleki local government areas of Lagos State from the Idogo or local chieftaincy family without compensation and use of acquired land by the Lagos State governments and entities to whom portions of same were allocated, demand for investigation, land, village excision, and 25 billion naira compensation as solid.
Thank you very much. The majority leader.
Mr. Speaker, it is time to take presentation of the report by the Committee on Judiciary, Human Rights, Public Petitions and LASIEC in respect of a petition on acquisition of 2,444 hectares of land at Mushere-Kogo, Mokpo, Abidjan and Onibeju areas in the Ibejuleki local government areas of Lagos State. To do this, Mr. Speaker, I wish to move that the House dissolve to Committee of the Whole. I so move.
Thank you. Honorable Afili Olariwaju.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I second the motion as moved.
All those in favor say aye. All those in favor say aye. All those who are against say nay. The ayes have it. Honorable Akande, are you ready?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Good afternoon once again. Report of the Committee on Judiciary, Human Rights, Public Petition and LASIEC on a petition on acquisition of 2,443.08 hectares of land at Mushere-Kogo, Mokpo, Abidjan and Onibeju areas in the Ibejuleki local government areas of Lagos State from Idogu Oloko chieftaincy family without compensation and use of acquired land by the Lagos State government and entities to whom portions of same were allocated. Demand for investigation, land excision, and 25 billion compensation. Preambles. The above petition was committed by Mr. Speaker to the Committee on Judiciary, Human Rights, Public Petitions and LASIEC to look into the veracity or otherwise of the allegation raised therein and report its findings to the House accordingly. Mr. Speaker, with the kind permission, may I jump to the cruise of the matter? Okay. The petition under reference dated 5th February 2020 by GT Oguye's Chambers on behalf of the Idogu Oloko chieftaincy family alleged the Lagos State government of acquiring about 2,443.08 hectares of his client's land without any compensation paid to the family. He sought the intervention of the House to prevail on the Lagos State government through the Lands Bureau for land excision and monetary compensation of 25 billion to the family. 3.0 Submission. 3.1 Barrister GT Oguye, the solicitor of the family informed the committee that his client owned a total parcel of land 2,443.08 hectares of land under native law and custom at Fosheje, Abidjan, Leso, Oniwaya, and Mushere-Kogo villages, which was acquired by the state government several years ago. He further stated that the land in question was divided into two large areas by the state government, namely Area A and Area B, adding that Area A, measuring 656.614 hectares, was acquired from Fosheje village, while Area B, parcel measuring 1,786.446 hectares was acquired from another part of Foseje, Ashu, Abijo, and lesser villages. He further alleged that both areas A and B have been allocated by the Lagos State government for various purposes and schemes, including a co-located housing scheme measuring 483.77 acres, Abijo GRE measuring 635.510 acres, aquaculture acquisition measuring 490.631 acres, and high-tech construction company limited. Professor Will posted further that series of letters and representations have been made to the state government for payment of compensation to Oloko Idogu chieftaincy family proved abortive, while lamenting that of all the families whose land were acquired, only Idogu Oloko chieftaincy family has not been paid any compensation till date. He further informed that with the large expanse of land allocated to high-tech company limited, where construction is massively ongoing, all the routes leading to Mosheri-Kogo community, which is the ancestral homeland and aboriginal settlement of his claims, had been completely blocked and cut off from Lekki-Ekpe Expressway. He added that the residents could only access the Mosheri-Kogo community through waterways as right of ingress and egress, thereby leading to the loss of their economic and social lives, aboriginal identity, cultural heritage, traditional religious sites, and resources, which could lead to a total extinction. In conclusion, he cited the provision of Section 43 and 44 of the 1999 Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria as amended on acquisition of immovable property in Nigeria and prompt payment of compensation to the owner of property being acquired. He thereafter sought the intervention of the House to prevail on the state government to grant an extension of a minimum of 750 hectares out of the total parcel acquired from Idogu Oloko chieftaincy family. That we start from Mosheri-Kogo community to link Lekki-Ekpe Expressway and the adjoining environs, and that the state government pays Idogu Oloko chieftaincy family the sum of 25 billion for the acquisition of the land. 3.2. Chief T.A. Idogu, head Idogu Oloko chieftaincy family, informed that the total parcel of land measuring 2,443.08 hectares upon which the family is claiming compensation falls within Mosheri-Kogo, while other communities like Mopo and Abijo shared boundaries with Mosheri-Kogo. He stated that the survey plan of the land in question was done in 1945 under Lagos colony, where every other adjoining community knows its boundary. Copy of the map as Annexure 1. He also tendered a list of distribution of Ibeju kindred, which reflected the communities belonging to the family. See Annexure 2. He disclosed no compensation was paid to the family at the time of the acquisition, except the 20 hectares extension granted Mosheri-Kogo community by the Lagos State government, and that attempt to grant another extension for the family in another community by the government was rejected by the family, who insisted on having further extension within the Mosheri-Kogo community. He added that the family applied for another extension since 1994 in view of its rapid expansion and increasing population, which has not been granted to date. See Annex 3. The Permanent Secretary, 3.3, the Permanent Secretary, last bureau, Mr. Badiagoro, submitted that there was a 1993 Lekki global acquisition by the state government for which compensation was paid to the affected families and extension granted to the concerned communities. He disclosed that 30 hectares of land extension was granted to the affected communities in the past. He admitted that over 2,000 hectares was acquired by the state government from the Idogu Oloko chieftaincy family, and confirmed that the family had applied for land extension at Mushiri Kogo since 2010, and that the request is still at inspection stage, and assured that the application will be revisited for necessary action. He added that it is incumbent on the state government to grant further extension to the community in view of its increasing population and expansion. 3.4. The Surveyor General, Mr. Shoguwawa, submitted that a total number of 21 communities existed in the whole Lekki area as at 1981, and confirmed that there was an acquisition by the Lagos State government in 1993. He equally confirmed that following the expansion of the community and increasing population of their inhabitants, the state government voluntarily granted 30 hectares of land extension to all identified concerned communities, including Mushiri Kogo in 1994, without being applied for. He corroborated the position of the Permanent Secretary, Land Bureau, that further extension could be granted to the community of its increasing population and expansion. He observed the need to redesign the road network in the community in view of its rapid development to meet the infrastructural needs of its increasing population. 4.0 Findings. In the course of the exercise, the committee observed the following: that 1, there was a Lekki global acquisition by the Lagos State government in 1993 involving some community within Lekki corridor and its environs. 2, the land belonging to Idogu Oloko chieftaincy family at Mushiri Kogo community was acquired by the Lagos State government in 1993. 3, the Lagos State government granted only 30 hectares of land to all the affected community since 1994 to date. 4, only 20 hectares of land extension was granted to Idogu Oloko chieftaincy family at Mushiri Kogo community since 1994 to date. 5, it is evident that Idogu Oloko chieftaincy family duly applied for land extension at Mushiri Kogo community since 2010. 6, there is no evidence of monetary compensation paid to Idogu Oloko chieftaincy family for their land acquired at Mushiri Kogo community by the Lagos State government. 7, Mushiri Kogo community is on the verge of extinction as a result of blockage of its access road through the land occasioned by the ongoing construction, thereby leaving the residents and inhabitants with only water as ingress and egress option. 5.0 Recommendations. Based on the submission of the concerned parties and agencies of government, the committee hereby recommend as follows: to call on the Governor, Mr. Babajide Olusola, to direct the Lands Bureau to expedite action on the approval of the land extension request by Idogu Oloko chieftaincy family and grant 100 hectares to the family at Mushiri Kogo for the development and expansion of the community. And 2, the Office of Surveyor General, in conjunction with the Ministry of Physical Planning and Urban Development and Land Bureaus, to redesign the roads leading to Mushiri Kogo community for easy entry and exit by the inhabitant. appreciation. On behalf of the other members of the committee, I hereby express our profound gratitude to Mr. Speaker and other distinguished colleagues for the confidence reposed in us to carry out this onerous assignment. My sincere appreciation also goes to the acting clerk of the House and the secretariat team for the successful completion of this task. Thank you, Victor Akande, Chairman, Committee on Judiciary, Human Rights, Public Petition, and LASIEC.
Thank you. Honorable Tobu, you have the light.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise to move that the report as presented by Honorable Victor Akande be adopted for debate. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Said Obafemi.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. I want to second the motion as moved.
All those in favor say yea. All those who are against say nay. The ayes have it. Honorable Yusuf Adebisi. However, before you start your contribution, can Honorable Majid, at this community in your area, can you please do us a favor? Can you do the correct pronunciations of this village so that we do not continue? Mosheri Kogo.
Mushiri Kogo. And the second one is LSHA Okesuno. I don't know why the chairman of the committee omitted Okesuno from that name. Okay. And the other one is Abijo.
The Dogun Oloko, is it Oloko or Oloko?
Dogun Oloko is at Mushiri Kogo.
Thank you.
It's the same thing, yeah.
Thank you. I thought we had Honorable Adebisi Yusuf before.
No, it was actually.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Taking this opportunity also to express my appreciation to the chairman of the committee that investigated and presented a report which I will find pro people. But Mr. Speaker, the committee demanded for two fundamental issues, but only one was addressed. And it is when you want to take something from somebody, you must compensate. Land is to this family. It's their own land. If you want to take it, you need to compensate them. And it is not that area alone, sir. There are a lot of land acquired by the people and by the government from the people, and they have never been compensated. It's their own property. So if you want to take anything from them, you need to compensate them. I know 25 billion may be too much, but they must be compensated, Mr. Speaker. That's number one. Number two, Mr. Speaker, I visited in Beju, and I know that area. The population of that area now is increasing at geometric progression. For 100 hectares, I think it's too small from the very big land acquired from the people. And every day, even including the second, the deputy majority leader, they are marrying every day. Where do you think that they will have land for their children yet unborn? So we must give them enough land to make sure that their family has a place to reside on. Then for 2010 that these people have demanded for extinction of affiliate extinction, up till now the permanent secretary was just saying that they are the
inspection stage wọ́n bá fọdún mẹ́wàá ṣe èrè ọdún mélòó ni wọ́n wá fẹ́ fi ṣe àṣírí.
Translation.
Well, if you just prepare for madness for 10 years, when exactly are you going to start madness? I don't know.
Literally.
So I think Mr. Permanent Secretary should be called to order and should be given a mandate to expedite action on the demand of the people. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good afternoon, my colleague, once again. Mr. Chairman, I need to thank the committee profusely for a job well done. But I have some observations and questions to ask. Number one, when you look at the submission of the families, especially the Chief T.A. Idogu, it's not clear what the state actually acquired from the family. But what we saw there is that they are asking for extension of about 750 hectares. But what is the actual hectares? Because what they have in there is not for the family alone. Other families are involved, but we want to ask the chairman whether it's 2,443 square meters acquired from the Idogo family or with other families. Number two,
Sorry. Page 4.
yes sir,
Column 3.3, line 5.
3.3 sir, talked about 2,005. Line 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yes. The what's it called? Mr. Bodiagu said over 2,000 hectares were acquired by the state from the. Okay, sir. Thank you, sir. 2,000 hectares acquired from by the state. I think going by what transpired, other communities were compensated, but there was no way you look at their finding number 6, sir, page 5. Finding 6, that there is no evidence of monetary compensation paid to Idogu Oloko chieftaincy family for their land acquired at Musherikogo community by Lagos State. My take is that if other communities were compensated, then this community too should be compensated, so that it will not bring about another round of trouble. So I will want the committee not only ask them to be given about 100 hectares. To me, 100 hectares from 2,000 hectares, it is a small fry. And if I have to go by what Honorable Bisi said, if they are given 400 or 500 hectares, it's theirs, we only acquired it. So my take is that they should be given more than 100 hectares. What is 100 hectares to the level of development in that area? And we did know that economic activities down is going towards Ibezilaki. A lot of things are coming up. So if you give them 100 hectares down, that means they will still come back. And by the time they are coming back, maybe you have overbuilt or you have sold the remaining ones, it will lead to another trouble. So I will want something that will be satisfying, that will be edifying, not just give them and let them go. So I will want the committee to probably see how we can put this forward. Then secondly, they must be compensated. In as much as other communities, they acquired their lands, they were compensated, they too must be compensated. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Honorable Said Obafemi.
Thank you, Right Honorable Speaker, sir. I really want to thank the committee for doing a robust report that is quite expository, in the sense that this report shows vis-a-vis the way and manners in which other committees, the other communities that were supposed to benefit from these extinctions were adequately compensated monetarily, while for over 10 years this better community was neglected. And even to buttress it again, the Land Bureau and the Surveyor General corroborated that they will be compensated. But looking at the quantum of land that was taken away from these people for the past 10 years, economic activities they've lost. And you know, in Lagos State, the only thing we have here is our land. When for over 10 years people were deprived, they couldn't farm, they couldn't do any meaningful constructions, and you want them to survive for 10 years, and nothing was done. And just a patch of 100 hectares is being recommended to be given to them. I think, and even in this report, it was even stated that the community is growing at a progression rate. If the community is growing and we are only giving them 100 acres, according to what Honorable Olowo has just said, it shows that we don't even want the people to live above a standard. We still want poverty to be the life of the day. So to my recommendation, I want these people to come inward and look at a more way in which the land compensation will be bigger than what is recommended here, and the Ministry of Land should even write an apology letter for stopping these people access. The way to life is road. When you close the road and people they don't have access to their central home, it means this community, what they've done for the past 10 years is just a way of making this community to go into extinction. I think the normal thing should be done, this report should be addressed, and more things should be given to this community so that we can keep on supporting people as a way and manner in which we are brought up. Thank you.
Honorable Adewale Temitope.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I want to also commend the chairman of the committee for a job well done. However, I have an observation with the report. And the observation is on page 4, findings 4.0. Number 3. The Lagos State government granted only 30 hectares of land to all the affected communities since 1994 till date. On page 5, it says only 20 hectares of land excision was granted to Idogun Oloko chieftaincy family since 1994. I need clarity for the recommendation, sir. Where it says recommendation 1, the governor Mr. Babajide Olusola Sanwo-Olu to direct Lands Bureau to expedite action on approval of the land excision request by Idogun Oloko chieftaincy family and grant 100 hectares to the family. If the government as at 1994 gave only 30 hectares, and line 5 of the findings, or the item 5.4 of the findings says only 20 hectares were granted approval. That means they still had 10 hectares left. So I'm thinking if it was a mistake where they wrote the 100 hectares to have been, since they are requesting for immediate approval, could to have been a 10 hectares left, and now requesting for another 750 hectares in their petition. So I need clarification on that, sir. Thank you, sir.
I guess at the appropriate time, the chairman will respond to that. However, from what he read out, I think there are other families from that land were taken from, but I guess he will respond to that appropriately. Or the majority leader.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. From the petition by the petitioners, they are not contesting the acquisition of their land by the government of the state. They are only asking, among others, for compensation, for excision, and for a way to go in and out of their community, which they say has been constrained by various infrastructural developments, construction work going on there. And the committee, following the request, have gone into making recommendations. I do not think that we have the capacity to impose financial compensation to be paid to these families, going by the fact that we are not a court of law, but playing the role of ombudsman, settling issues between citizen and citizen and the state. I also believe that the compensation these people are asking for is reasonable in view of the fact that what is good for the goose is good for the gander. If some other have been paid compensation, why not the Idogu Oloko family, which said not to have gotten compensation from the family? And I think the committee needs to inquire from Lands Bureau why others are paid compensation and Idogu was exempted. There must be a reason for this, because if they have been paid compensation, I'm sure this family will not approach the House of Assembly. And there are cases of, like Honorable BC said, there are so many cases of people coming back to the House of Assembly to say their lands were acquired and compensation were not paid. We know the government has the capacity for acquisition, but when acquisition, there are conditions precedent to acquisition of land. There are things you have to do for the original owners of the land in view of the fact that the land is inheritance of the people for the current generation and for generation yet unborn. Mr. Speaker, I think in this case, the government, having the established committee not to have paid compensation to Idogu family, could still grant, apart from the excision being asked for by the family, the government could still also grant parcel of land to the committee in lieu of the financial compensation they ought to have been paid at the time of the acquisition. So if we are asking that the land be given to this committee, we can be talking about the land excision. Excision is discretionary. You can ask for excision and will not be given. You can ask for excision and you are given. I do not think we have to limit the excision to a particular hectares. If we say 100 hectares, are we sure that the land bureau and the government is not planning to give them something more than that? I think we have to make it granting them excision for a parcel of land commensurate to the proportion of the parcel of land that have been taken away from these people, without being specific about 750 or 250. Is a government of the state. He has the power for acquisition and he has the discretion for excision. And also we must also ask the Land Bureau, why is it taking too long for the Land Bureau to grant this 11 years request for excision? That means they don't want to do it. They want to do it. They ought to have done it. And now assuring us that they will do something about it this 2021, what they have been asking for since 2010. I do not think that is fair enough to the people and to the generation of the leaders and those yet unborn. So, Mr. Speaker, I want to commend the committee for, one, acceding to the request of the people and being able to negotiate, a way out. The Land Bureau promises to look into the request. The Surveyor General also promised to find a way out to rechannel routes along the route so that the family will have way in and out of the land that have been conned off by various development, except that the issue of compensation not paid to the committee was not addressed here. 20 billion as compensation. that is much. But I say that the government should be compassionate in giving a kind of compensation to the family, not necessarily financial. They could give them more parcel of land in lieu of the financial compensation because they have done it to some other persons. But there is a thing we need to do with the Land Bureau. Land Bureau must find a way of helping this House of Assembly out in dealing fairly with citizens of the state and land-owning families when it comes to compensation, excision, and the rest of other things that falls within the mandate of the Lands Bureau. Because here and there we keep getting petition Is that they are not giving compensation or they are not attending to the people seriously? But the committee has really tried, except that the issue of compensation was not addressed, Mr. Speaker. And for the issue raised by Honorable Temitope, we keep having 30 hectares, 20 hectares, 30 hectares, 20 hectares. We do not know which one we should believe. The government granted only 30 acres of land to all the affected communities. And they say, Moshere Joko, or what is the name, got 20 hectares, while Itoku does not get anything. There's no reconciliation of the total number of hectares here, and it is confusing. Is that somebody took 30 acres and releases 20 acres, or what is the issue as regards that? So these are some of the clarifications that we need the committee to do. But in all, the committee has actually done a good job. Nobody is perfect.
Thank you. Honorable Tobo. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Just going by the submission of the majority leader, I want to make reference to page 3, where it was a portion of the Constitution was cited, section 43 and 44, where they feel prompt payments must be made to the family that their property were acquired. With that provision in the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, it's expected that the family should have been paid by now. And land to us in Lagos State is like crude oil or petroleum to the Niger Delta. And we know what's going on in Niger Delta. So with that, we want to use this opportunity to appeal to the government. Now, when land are acquired, let the members of the family, those who willingly, that they have the ancestral owner of that land, should be compensated immediately, so that at least it will not become a burden for those coming generation in future. Then secondly, sir, I think we need to determine the percentage, if possible. We should determine the percentage that goes back to the family. If you acquire 100 hectares, if you are giving them 10%, you should be able to give them. The compensation could be in terms of giving them some portion of the land or giving them money and government releasing the document to them immediately. So if that is not done, when that government leave post, others that will come behind too will be interested. So it will become difficult for the owner of those land to have access to their ancestral base. That is what is going on. And other thing is, when those land are they acquired for overriding public interest? If not, the family need to be well compensated. That is the truth. We don't have to go start burdening that. But coming back to giving them 100 hectares, giving them 750, the question is, when you go to, when you go to page 1, where the land has been acquired, some land has been given out. So where will they get 750? They say 630 hectares has been given out to Abidjan GRA, 480 has been given out to Eko Akete, Akwasin has been getting 450. When you add it together, it's 1,800 out of 240. And the number given to ITEC has not been mentioned. So where do we get the land of 750 they were asking for? So I feel government should do what is expected of them, so that the members of the public will be happy. You understand? And there will be no uproar in our various community. And access to the remaining portion of land is very important. Coming into their land through waterways and egress through waterways. So I feel that recommendation where they say the physical planning should redesign the road to allow those people have access through the express is very, very important. So Mr. Speaker, that is my contribution. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Honorable Rotimi, thank you very much. The Right Honorable Speaker, fellow members, good afternoon. I also have a few comments I wish to make on the report of the committee. I think it is right for us to properly situate issues when they come before this noble house. The procedure for government to compensate unacquired land, to the best of my knowledge, is that under the Global Land Acquisition Act that we had, when government acquires land, they acquire land from communities. Different families make up a particular community, and this can be seen on the Annexure 2, whereby communities were identified and various family names were stated. Now, when land is acquired, government compensates families, and excise land to communities. Government do not excise lands to families. They excise land to communities. Now, depending on the quantity of the quantum of land given to communities, families that make up those communities now share. Now, what I can see from this report is that land was acquired from various communities in which the particular petitioner is also a part of one of those communities. Compensation was given from the report here too. I think some families got monetary compensation, and also 30 hectares of land was also given to the entire communities. Now, from this report, what I can further say is that probably from the 30 hectares acquired and given excise to those communities, this particular community where this Mosheri Kogo belongs got 20 of the 30 hectares given to those communities. Some communities got some other portions of land and probably money. Now, in the report, it is clear that this family were not compensated with cash, money trading. It is also in the report. So I wouldn't know what actually transpired at that time. It could be an arrangement, because they claimed that this family has the largest land or largest portion of land from from the acquired land, and maybe that was why they also gave them a greater portion of the excised land, which is 20 hectares or 30 hectares, and maybe no monetary compensation was due to them. Now, after 1994, communities have evolved in that area. This land we're talking about is almost about the entire of Lekki, because we have various communities here that exist today that we know. There is Arapagi, there is Magwalagi, there is Igodwoloja, there is Orofu, there is, and these are various communities. They exist there today. And like somebody said, land have been allocated. A co-allocating scheme is there. So many schemes are there. I wonder why where government will get land to compensate. We do that. Even at that time, I think I was giving an offer to this family that they might give them extension outside of that community, and they refused. So I think it will be burdensome for us to ask government to go and look for 100 hectares of land for them there. It is around the Honorable Mojit's community. I don't know whether he can also attest that there is so much land that is lying fallow that government can take from to compensate this family. I wouldn't really know. And away from that, Mr. Speaker, sir, I I don't know, and I don't think it is right and proper for us to sit down in the House of Assembly and try to use the resolution of the House to allocate land to families. I don't think it is part of our responsibility. I'm very sorry. It's my personal opinion. But I don't think it is part of our responsibility to call on government to acquire land, to give land to families with our resolution here. I mean, there's a mechanism which this family must have explored through the lands bureau. Why are they running here? Almost 30 years after, asking us to intervene in their matter. I think it is right and proper for us to refer them back there to, or I don't know, but I don't think it is right and proper for us to allocate land to families with the resolution of the House. I so submit, sir. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. My observation is also on 5.0, the recommendation. And just like the last speaker said, it's when we start giving out recommendation or things like this that are sometimes not visible might actually water down the House a bit. My concern is the issue of the 100 hectares, because I want to find out from the committee, did they do on the spot assessment to know if this parcel of land still available, and if not, are we also, because we treated something earlier about dredging, reclamation and what have you, are we also trying to encourage them to start reclamation of these 100 hectares? Because I don't know where this 100 hectares is not a small size of land, so I don't know where the state government will get this 100 hectares from. Is it going to be monetized or something? I need a clearer explanation on this, sir. Thank you, sir.
Honorable Akinsoya.
Thank you, Right Honorable Speaker, my colleagues. Good afternoon. Please, Mr. Speaker, I just want to talk to the recommendation number 2. The Office of the Surveyor General, in conjunction with the Ministry of Fiscal Planning and Urban Development and Land Bureau, to redesign the road leading to Shorelline community. You know, we should consider the master plan. We cannot, because of one community, now change the master plan. And I think there is time, I think it's about 10 years they used to change the master plan. And if it's the land in question, they should have maybe schools, market, and so on and so forth. So the master plan, we should consider it before the motion, but it's not good enough for us to now, the House should now pass resolution, and it should not be followed. That is one, sir. Secondly, the compensation, sir, it might be in form of, I'm not against what you call it, recommendation that they should give them 100 hectares of land, but as the last speaker said, we should be able to know, the House should know, maybe the land is still available. It's very, very important, sir. So if the land is there, or they're going to give them, they are going to do monetize it for them. Maybe they are going to give them cash or give them another land. They used to do it. Maybe that should be the recommendation. If they don't have land in that area, maybe they're going to give them another land elsewhere. That's, I don't know. So that is my submission, Mr. Speaker, sir.
And lastly, Honorable Shorelline.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I must commend the committee for looking into this petition. Of course, the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria states that that section 43, I think, was mentioned, where land is acquired or immovable properties are acquired, compensation is something that must be paid immediately. Promptly is the word that was used. My colleagues have spoken extensively on compensation, so permit me to draw attention to what I have seen in this petition. Page 4, under the submission of the Permanent Secretary Lands Bureau, Mr. Bodiagboro. If you go to the 4 lines to the end, it says that the request is still at inspection stage and assured that the application would be revisited for necessary action. He added that it is incumbent on the state government to grant further accession to the committee in view of its increasing population and expansion. If you go further to look at the comment of the Surveyor General, to concord by saying that he agreed with the position of the Permanent Secretary on Lands Bureau. I want to toe the line of the majority leader a bit, which is, we don't know what government really wants to do. I would suggest humbly that rather than be the judge in this matter, we push government to expedite action and conclude that process. Let them come out with the outcome based on the appropriate guideline, policy, processes which they have started, which they have done times without number. The issue of compensation would also naturally come into play, but government, the executive, should complete that process that they've embarked on as far back as 2020. That's 2010. That is my humble opinion. Rather than us take it away from them and take a decision. Even if we take the decision, if I want to drag their foot, they've dragged it for 11 years anyway. You understand? They can still continue to drag. Let them complete that process. They may get more. They may get, some of my colleagues have even raised it. Is the 100 hectares available? It may be more than that is even available. But let's push the government to complete that process and come up with the appropriate compensation, accession, as the case may. If it is now not adequate, we can look into it and advise appropriately. That is my humble position. Thank you.
Thank you. The chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. My response. Thank you, my honorable brother, for correcting the pronunciation. And it's an oversight for us not to include Okesuno. Thank you so much. Number one, the first speaker said Honorable VC said that it is too small. We did justice to it, and we really discussed, because initially they want to insist. They insisted they have to take 750 hectares and compensation. And I asked them in the presence of peers and everybody, is it compensation first, or let's take the accession? They said the accession first, then compensation will come later. I took that. That's the first one. The second issue is there land remaining there? The PS cannot say there is no land. And because the Surveyor General said there are still some land. But what he said is that he will go and look at whether we have enough land. When we told him, because they confirmed there are still land there, they wanted to reposition those or relocate, and
those people said where they want to relocate them to is far from their ancestral, and since they still have land remaining, they should give them part of their land they will take instead of relocating them. We took the import and everything was explained in the presence of PS and Surveyor General. That is that. The Honorable, thank you very much. There is no lacuna in what we stated. Their own land is 2,443.08 hectares. Their own land, and when you look at the community, we are staring them at the back. We are staring on the distribution of the population children. They were the one that staring at the back. These people, this community, the portion, their own portion is 2,400, and again they release 30 hectares. From what we discovered there and there, others has gone back to seek for extension, and some of them have been granted. But on the case of these people, for the past 11 years, they've been on it and nothing was done. That is that. And the issue of the number of hectares, we know that there are still remaining about almost 600 hectares. But for us to be able to get something to this family so that there won't be delay, because some of them they are dead, waiting for the extension or the compensation. Most people are dead. So we now decide to bring it down as low as 100 for the House to ratify. Then area of compensation, we are of the opinion that there is a way they calculated or they calculate the compensation. Because we don't want to jump the gun, we don't want to create problem. We leave it to the discretion of the House and the governor. We don't know how it is being calculated. Is it the present, the current price or the former price? Since the land has been acquired for a long time, since 1994, 1993. Again, the issue of 10 hectares and 30 hectares, Honorable Temitope Eja. The whole land that was released is 30 hectares. They were given 20 hectares because they have the largest. But since then, others has gone to collect, they've been compensated and they've gone for extension, which the PS confirmed. Majority leader, why Mushiri Kogo was not paid, PS agreed that some of them they paid lump sum and they formed a committee, and some of them were paid, some of them were not yet paid. He agreed, but he said he would do something about it. Then on the issue of extension, we now ask, why is it that they don't grant extension? And what the PS told us is that it has been long that extension has been granted. And I asked him to forward to us the last time extension was granted. Honorable Tobu, yes, compensation must be paid, like I said, but there is rules. There is the way they calculate the compensation, and no, we cannot just grant them 20 billion or say any monetary issues. At the end of the day, we shoot ourselves in the leg, or maybe we calculate or grant them and it's slower. So we leave it to the discretion of the House and the discretion of Mr. Governor. Honorable, where did you want government to get land? According to the PS, there is still land remaining there. And that was why we had that discussion, and the discussion was robust, and we were able to get to where we are. Honorable Mojisola Whip confirmed that there is still some land, but not much. We confirm that there is still land there, but we don't know if the land is, but I can tell you from what we discovered that the land that is still there must be between 600 and 400 to 600 hectares. Honorable Akisanya, yes, master plan, but we cannot say we want to follow master plan to the detriment of the people that we are here, that we can persuade the government to give them access road. That was why the Soviet Jedi itself was the one that raised it, that it is time for them to go and look at the place, because the place, according to him, there is no access road. So they have to do something. And we now include the physical planning because they are in charge of mapping out access road. In all, I think that is all. So we only ask the House to help us adjust the number of acres of land, because we are looking at 100. Let them start with something so that they won't just go empty-handed. And that we did not put the monetary compensation directly because we don't know how to calculate the value. We don't know, and we don't want to shoot ourselves at the leg. Thank you, sir.
Well, I want to thank the chairman of the committee and distinguished colleagues for their contributions, and the issue of compensation of land that is the cross of matter here. Since the committee did not recommend any specific amount, but from what obtains in the past is that they usually use cash crops, and Lagos, we are not an agrarian society, is always at the detriment of the people of Lagos. What is in the book is agrarian community. They use cash crops, and we are not that agrarian in Lagos. The issue really is the distinguished members are asking is even if you go ahead and recommend 100 hectares, are you sure they will be able to give, the state will be able to give that? Or do you want to adjust the recommendation that the process already started on the issue of accession be completed and they should be given land as appropriate? Maybe you are looking at the fact that they got 2,400 and what they gave was just 30.
20.
And now
20, sir.
They now have
they got 20 from the 30. And what we are looking at, because we PS confirmed that it's still land, but he said he will go and get the volume and do something. He promised to do, he agreed.
That's why we are still saying that they are not as fast, the PS and the PS, the PS lands and the Surveyor General are not as fast to them giving lands or accession to these people, but the honorable members, colleagues are asking, if we recommend 100, would they have that 100? Is it something, or we just recommend, is it not proper that we toe the line of Honorable that the process already started should be concluded and they be given what is generous and reasonable?
Sir, if we leave it vague, it will still go back, maybe they will give them 20 or 10 hectares. That is discretionary.
Also, our second recommendation that the Ministry of Physical Planning and Urban Development and Land Bureau to redesign the roads leading to the Honorable Action is saying that is that amount to tampering with the master plan, but also we will know that the community should have access road, that they cannot just be cut off from civilization, not and not endanger the lives of the community where it is only
as amended by
waterways and what?
As amended, sir.
Waterways. So I don't think we should just probably even add the Ministry of Works so that they can do the roads and that. But the first one, you still want us to take it as a recommendation. Okay, suggestion, having suggestion. I guess it will not lead to another round of debate. Honorable.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'm of the opinion that based on what Honorable Shao said and coupled with what Honorable Akisa talked about, maybe we should not distort the master plan. And again, I don't know whether the committee actually visited.
Sorry, I missed your point.
Yes, sir. I said based on what Honorable Shao talked about, availability, and coupled with what Honorable Akisa talked about, destruction of the master plan. I'm of the view that the committee ought to have gone to the site to have a first-hand knowledge about what's on ground. And number two, there's supposed to have been a negotiation between the land bureau and the community so that they have a consensus. I think that consensus is supposed to bring to the floor of the house. Going by all this, I think it should be stepped down till further notice for him to go and do those additional assignments for us to now look at all those issues globally and reach a conclusion. And again, you are saying that you will not give them any benchmark on compensation. You ought to put it in your report that the committee must be compensated using whatever process or whatever parameters they use for others to compensate them, by not putting it in the report shows and in their conclusion shows that whether they give them anything, they don't give anything, we are not party to that. But with all this, I think we should be stepped down for another day so that we can factor all these issues so that we can have a very, very effective conclusion that it will not be lopsided. That's my submission, sir.
Majority that you have the light.
Yes, sir. In the contrary, Mr. Speaker, I think the committee has made a very straightforward remarks just for the issue of the specification on the number of land. We are the representative of the people. The people had come to us asking for compensation, asking for excision, asking for road to access their land, accessibility. The Land Bureau, PS Land Bureau, the Surveyor Generals have agreed to the fact that they will look at a way to provide access in and out of their land. That is settled. On the issue of land, the PS has said the excision will be looked into, and now that the house has come into it, we will help the people to facilitate the process of excision, which is purely discretionary. We cannot say give them this land, give them this number of land. We have said that give them excision, the excision that has started, let it end. So expedite action on the excision so they will get their land. On compensation, we can just say that the government, in view of the fact that some people have paid compensation then, the government should on compassionate ground find a way of compensating these people for the land taken from them. I think that also will settle the case now that the House of Assembly had to it. Even if they go back 10 times, we still cannot say executive give them 20 acres of land, give them 100 acres of land. The compensation is also discretionary. Like you have said, cash crop since what? The price of cash crop then, how much is it now? So I think the three issues these people are asking for have been taken care of by the committee. Two have been taken care of by the committee. Let them be given compensation. Let them be given excision. Let them be given access to their land. They have been promised on two. The other one we can just put it in on compassionate ground. The executive should grant them compensation on their land, and that settles the matter. That's my thinking, Mr. Speaker.
From what I can gather from distinguished honorable, but I don't think we should start, we should just end this, because no matter where it ends, the issues are three. One, the issue of access road, they are entitled to that. The government, either through the urban development, land bureau and Ministry of Works, should provide access road, find a way of providing access road to this community. In terms of compensation, they should look at it and compensate them as appropriate. On the first issue that is contentious on the excision, the most contentious issue is the EFTA has been recommended. We will take what Honorable Isha recommended, that the process already started should be concluded, and the decision done to them as appropriate. Can somebody move for adoption? Honorable Tobun.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. With the necessary amendment and corrections streamlined, I want to move that the recommendation of the committee be adopted as the resolution of the House. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Honorable Said Obafemi.
Thank you, Right Honorable Speaker. I support the motion as moved.
All those who support say yes. All those who are against say nay. The ayes have it. The majority leader.
Mr. Speaker, I move that the House reverts to plenary. I so move.
Honorable Tijani.
I rise to second the motion as moved.
All those in favor say yea. All those who are against say nay. The ayes have it. Majority leader.
Mr. Speaker, at the committee of the whole, the House took the report of the committee on Judiciary, Human Rights and Public Petitions and LASIEC in respect of a petition on acquisition of some hectares of land at some communities in the Ibejuleki local government areas of Lagos State. The report was debated by members, argument for and against. At the end of the day, the resolutions, the recommendations of the committee were amended, and subsequently the House agreed to make the amended resolution as the recommendation of the House. That's what transpired at the committee of the whole, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you. Honorable Makinde Rashid.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise to move that that was what transpired. I want to affirm that was the true reflection of what transpired at the committee of the whole. Thank you.
Honorable Moya.
I rise to second the affirmation.
All those in favor say all those who are against say nay. The ayes have it. Majority leader.
The paper have been exhausted, and with your permission, I move that the House adjourns till Tuesday, the 5th day of October at 10 o'clock. I so move.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise to second the motion as moved by the majority leader.
All those in favor say yea. All those who are against say nay. The ayes have it. This House stands adjourned till October 5th, 2021 at 10 a.m. There will be a short parliamentary, just 2 minutes, as directed by Mr. Speaker. I rise.